Good morning, friends. I was thinking as Rita introduced that week 26, we're halfway there. The thought that came into me is, yes, but we need to keep going. That's a little bit of the theme here for me this week. In any endeavor in life, we often find that there are qualities of living that are very helpful, and we learn these qualities in different ways. Both Yogananda and Kriyananda talked about the importance of being a divine friend for each other, kindness, harmony. Sometimes that means compromising, but these are all really helpful qualities on the spiritual path. Two other qualities are patience and perseverance. So it's the perseverance of keep going beyond. Don't just stop in week 26. We learn these qualities in a multitude of ways. Sometimes in worldly ways, sometimes in spiritual ways. I had an opportunity to learn about the patience and perseverance on our honeymoon, as it turns out. We had been, as some of you know, we had primarily a long-distance relationship. We met on a blind date, but before we met, I had been offered and accepted a transfer back to the corporate headquarters of the company I worked for, which was in New Jersey, which necessitated the long distance part of it. So on the second date, we realized, because it was pretty much love at first sight, we realized, okay, we need to talk about this. How are we going to do this? And we talked every day for 9 months, literally did not miss a day until she hopped on a plane and did it for a semester in London. Fortunately, 3 days before she hopped on the plane, we got engaged. And when she landed, a couple months later, the wedding plans began in earnest. And some wise soul, I don't remember now who, gave me the sage advice that my job in the wedding plans was just say yes. I think I did that pretty well. My other job was to plan the honeymoon, bringing this back to the story. Now, for some reason, I don't remember why I got it into my head, I'm going to keep the plans secret, make it a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, Saranya's laughing at that one. Not sure that was wise, but there were certain parameters I had to deal with because it was basically a 2-week honeymoon, the second half of which would be driving her car with her things across the country. But the first half, we were doing sort of the more typical, more romantic things. So we had a lovely wedding. We spent the evening, the night at a hotel in San Francisco, did that night's dinner on a hornblower yacht, the dinner on the bay for those of you who remember hornblower yachts. The next day we did some family things. I'd had a friend who had recommended a place up in Gualala, up in Mendocino County to stay. And so we did that, we made arrangements, but there was one night in between where we were going to stay in Gualala and that night in San Francisco that they didn't have any openings, so we had to find some other place. So the same friend had recommended this place, the Timber Cove Lodge or Timber Cove Inn, whatever it's called, in Timber Cove, which is on Highway 1 heading up the coast. Hadn't been there. This was in the days before the internet, but I had seen a brochure and it looked like a nice place. So we left very late from the family things, and the sun had set by the time we were getting close. And this is because before the internet, obviously before cell phones and GPS, I had looked at the old paper map, but I was, for whatever reason, trying to keep it sort of secret. She knew we were going to stay on the coast. So I couldn't hand her the map and say, tell me where to turn. So I relied on those green signs. Timber Cove, 5 miles. Okay, we're getting close. Timber Cove, 1 mile. Okay, there's no buildings here. It's a very, very nothing town. And then I saw one of those little blue signs that says lodging, turn here. Okay, so we turned into the driveway. Well, as it turns out, it was not the Timber Cove Lodge or Inn. It was the Timber Cove Trailer Park. It left a lot to be desired. Let's just hold it that way. But I thought, well, maybe it's the driveway going through the trailer to get into this. It was no, it was not. She wasn't laughing like she is now. But I was like, okay, I gotta turn this around somehow, in some way. So as I'm get back out on the highway, I just turned, trust me. That trust me has become a phrase that has worked itself over these 33 years of marriage now. I've never been wrong when I use that phrase. When I say I'm 100% positive, yeah, no, I'm still sometimes wrong. But when I pull the trust me card, I'm always right. The perseverance to just keep going. Turn around the parking lot, just keep going. And of course, 100 yards later, there it is, Shangri-La. Was I redeemed? Maybe, I don't know. But not in the spiritual sense, maybe in the sort of material way. But that was an important and helpful lesson for me to keep going, and that patience, that obviously in a worldly way, I wasn't yet on a spiritual path, to just keep going. Sometimes we learn these lessons in a spiritual way. This reading today, this light that Isaiah and so many others, Yogananda, Kriyananda, pretty much every saint in every tradition has talked about this light. And one of the best ways and the most common ways that we experience it is in meditation. That when we can get deep and we can concentrate, that we have our behind closed eyes, we begin to see this, well, for many of us, it starts to show up as this sort of faint violet. And maybe with continued devotion, continued deep meditation, it might get brighter. We might see a lighter rim to it. It might even get, oh gee, it looks exactly like that, the spiritual eye. Some of us get it right away. There's a story of one man, I heard this story, I don't know if it's true or not, that somebody came into the expanding light up in Nevada City at Ananda there, saw a painting or saw that in a book, and said, what is that? I've been seeing that my whole life. What is that? Some people just naturally get it. I didn't. I spent a long time before I realized I could start imagining seeing that light, and that actually was helpful for me. That in this way, the persistence to just keep going. The very first time I ever meditated, which was long before we knew about Ananda, but it was a formal meditation. It was a guided imagery, but I had I'll call it a mystical experience. It wasn't this big fancy thing there, but it was enough for me to recognize I didn't really know what was going on, but it was something that felt really good and really helpful. And it got me back to meditating again. And that so often is the case in life, in the human journey, when we experience some kind of, this is good, I want to keep going and to keep experiencing that. And that's really a part of the persistence, the keep going. It wasn't until later that over a course of 5 years or so that Ananda came into our life, and I learned these techniques and Hong Sa and some of these other yoga and meditation things. Again, I personally wasn't on a spiritual life. I was very worldly in that way, but I enjoyed them. And I had other experiences of meditation as I was going along. But as I said, I wasn't seeing light. Even though I was hearing about it, I was reading about it, but I wasn't seeing it. But I felt calmness. I felt something like just keep going. So I kept going. Somewhere along the line in there, about 10 years into our marriage, we realized the circumstances of our life were really, really good. I had a lot of successes in life. All the successes that I grew up with, that I was told these are the things to achieve in life, that life is good when you realize these things. You know, the job, the money, the wife, and all those things. But it didn't feel fulfilling. And I didn't know exactly what it was that I needed, but we were at a juncture in our life where the circumstances were necessarily going to be changing. And we had the wherewithal, and it's a bit of a longer story, I'm not going to go into all the details, to basically chuck our life and start anew. And I don't know why or how this happened, but on the very first day that we sort of had let go of the old life, and we were sitting at a really nice place on the water on the East Coast, and I said to her, I don't know what this new life is going to be. I don't know what the vision and the mission and all those things are, but I know I want spirituality to be the center of it. That shocked me. those words came out of my mouth, I think it shocked you as well, because it had no basis. I don't know to this day exactly why, but I know that I had been meditating. I know that I had been doing yoga postures. I knew that that old life was not fulfilling, and that there was something here about this that felt right and felt good. Fast forward just a couple of months, because all of these things that we're doing to change our life and the circumstances, and we found ourselves at the Expanding Light, and I found myself in the yoga teacher training program. That's another whole story of why did I do that? I don't know. It just felt like the thing to do as I was invited into that. We're in a sadhana. I'm in a meditation there. I think it was day 7 of the program, and I had an experience in meditation in that sadhana. Now, this was back in the days when 15-minute meditation was a really long meditation for me personally. 5 minutes was, okay, that's a good time. But I stuck out. I pushed myself for those 15 minutes. But I think what was happening all along the way, and I can see it now, but I didn't realize it at the time, that from all of those meditations that I was doing, I was very irregular with my meditation practice. I was very irregular with my yoga practice, with all these techniques. But they had been working me. All that time of wanting, of putting energy into making some way spirituality at the center of our life, all of that had been working me. That persistence, that patience turned itself around, turned myself around in particular, inwardly. And I had an experience. And it was an experience of Yogananda coming to me. And I knew in that moment, he was here for me. He was going to be with me no matter what, guiding me no matter what, giving me his love no matter what. All of that patience, all of that persistence led to that moment. I can look back now and say that was a redeeming moment for me. I spent all that time and energy of going through the worldly ways of successes out there. It's not bad, but it just doesn't feel really good. And searching inwardly, turning it around, just like I turned around in the Timber Grove Lodge. And I found redemption in that way. Now, redemption it's interesting. It's a part of the title of this reading, The Redeeming Light, but the word redemption doesn't actually show up in all the rest of the words that Swami puts into that reading. But he talks quite a bit about redemption in other ways. And how do we get there? I look at redemption as little moments in time as we experience, in particular, this patience, this persistence. But there's this relationship between redemption and grace. It's not necessarily that we do these things and there's this exchange of I do this and God gives me grace or God gives me redemption. It can sometimes feel like that, but that's not actually the way it works. That process of turning around and giving to God, whatever. There's a line in the festival that we'll get to here in a few minutes. I can't always remember the exact words, but it's basically, we exchange the coin of, I'm getting it wrong. The coin of man's redemption, suffering and sorrow, has been exchanged for calm acceptance and joy. And it's the pain that we experience as the fruit of love of self versus the fruit of love, joy, as the fruit of love for God. And for me, what that means is that when we are experiencing sort of in this old world, almost dogmatic way of that suffering and that sorrow, that's where redemption lies. And it's not that that's untrue, but it's a little limiting to hold it that way. Whereas this calmness, the calm acceptance of whatever the circumstances are, exactly what the affirmation here of non-attachment is referring to. Now, that can be a very high bar, especially in the front pages of the news that we see, the headlines that we see constantly over and over again. There is so much suffering, there is so much difficulty in the world. It's not about denying that. It's not about a spiritual bypass of just forgetting those and just go inward with it. But there's a way that we can accept what is and learn to give that to God. And that's the turning around. It doesn't deny the difficulty. Now, sometimes when I'm looking at, or any of us are looking at or seeing or reading about all of this suffering, all this sorrow that's in the world, it can be agitating. And that calm acceptance, like, where can I find calm acceptance when I'm feeling so agitated with all of this humanity that's in the world? And it's in those moments when we accept, I'm feeling agitated. In other words, there's a little bit of a paradox there. I can calmly accept that I'm agitated. But this is the way it can work. If I can calmly accept it, if I can learn that lesson, again, this is a high bar, and give that to God, there's a moment there of redemption. And the more that I can string those moments together like a pearl necklace, the more that I will feel that joy as the fruit of love for God. Now, for me, personally, it was easier to let go of the successes that weren't feeling fulfilling and to turn that inward. So it wasn't so much about turning the suffering, the sorrow that I was seeing and experiencing in the world, but recognizing, okay, that success, yes, it's success in a worldly way, but it didn't feel fulfilling, and turning that part of it around and giving those successes that are outward successes back to God. And listen deeply for, what is it that's trying to happen? And I can't always know what's trying to happen. But this part feels good, so do more of that. That part didn't feel quite as good, let that part go. That's how we turned our life around. That's how, for both of us, individually and then also together. Swami Kriyananda had an experience kind of similar to this. How I sort of look at it when he found Autobiography of a Yogi sitting in that bookstore in New York City. And he was just magnetically drawn to it. And if you remember the story, for those of you who have read it in the past, he was just spellbound by that picture of Yogananda. And just at that moment, a friend of his came into the store and said, "Hi, how you doing? What's going on with your life? You want to get into this world that I'm in advertising and do all these things?" And he found himself hugging that book, bringing that image to his heart. It wasn't a conscious reaction, it just happened. But he felt a little something, and he put the book back and then left the store. But he came back the next day, bought the book, read it that night, hopped on a bus, 3 days later found himself in front of Yogananda. Again, these don't always make sense. But that patience and that persistence of Kriyananda to keep going, keep recognizing, this is what I'm seeking, even though I don't necessarily understand why. That whatever was happening in my life before, seeking truth, seeking these things, was something that he felt he was going to get with Yogananda. And when Yogananda said, "Will you give me your unconditional love?" It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Again, a high bar. And so after a little brief exchange, yes, I will give you my unconditional love. Thank goodness he did, because we wouldn't be here if he hadn't. So that patience, that persistence, the persistence that Swami Kriyananda has shown all of the remaining years of his life to keep bringing the teachings of Yogananda to anybody who would accept them, anybody who would take that calm acceptance and joy to a large degree, to a small degree. The degree doesn't matter. Bring it inward and feel that sense of, what can redemption look like? I mean, yes, of course, there is the ultimate redemption with the ultimate goal of realizing God, becoming self-realized. And maybe that will happen in the very first meditation that one has. Maybe that will happen in the second meditation. I've been meditating, many of us have been meditating for a long while. Keep going. When joy is the fruit of love for God, and when I can feel that joy, that's going to help me keep going. Because the light that is being talked about in this reading is but one way to feel God's presence. It's not the only way. Joy is another way. There's all kinds of ways that these teachings tell us how to experience it. Maybe some of them simultaneously. Maybe it's joy and light, the vibrations of Om, the sound. Maybe we learn our lessons in a worldly way, but that's just a start. It's not the finish. And that's something else that's important, that all these things, those experiences that I was having, that little metaphysical thing that I had in the very first meditation, that experience with Yogananda I had when I was up at the yoga teacher training, those are experiences. And Swami Kriyananda tells us, experiences are good. That's not the end game. The end game of soul realization, self-realization. Now, in one sense, they're kind of mile markers away, these mile markers along the way, these experiences. But use them if you have had them. Use them to propel you to keep going, to feed that sense of persistence, but being patient. Oftentimes, patience and persistence is held in the sense of lifetimes, multiple lifetimes that we take to become realized. The patience that it takes to realize, I don't know how many lifetimes I've had, I don't know how many lifetimes I'm going to need. That sense of wanting to, well, maybe it's going to be this lifetime, so go at it like it's going to happen in my next breath. But have the patience to recognize, I may be 1,000 lifetimes away, but it's going to happen. And that persistence to keep going, but finding those moments, those pearls to experience, to help me. It's like filling the gas tank. Filling my gas tank along the way to keep going. Keep calling him. I feel like there was something more I was going to say, but it's not coming to my mind, so I think I'm going to close there. This is what we can do, the redeeming light. However the redemption shows up for you, don't judge it, but we keep turning it inward, keep giving it to God, not because these teachings or James up here is telling us to, but because it feels like the right thing to do. Blessings.
Yes, we'll have some music.
Come here while I sing you of emerald hills, of valleys and meadows so fair, that all who have seen them have carried away memories in their hearts, friends, like the lilacs of May. Oh, my song is the story of the lilacs of May. My song is the story of deer on the hills, of larks that soar seeking the sun, of nightingales lifting the curtain of night, as with music they bring down heaven's blessing of light. Oh, my song is the story of God's blessing of light. Come join me in singing of that emerald isle, of flowers that like jewels we sprinkle the lea of waterfalls eager to embrace the wide sea, as we with our Maker united would be, as we with our Maker reunited would be. Come here while I sing you of emerald hills, of valleys and meadows so fair, that all who have seen them have carried away memories, hearts, friends, like the lilacs of May. Oh, my song